PIE, okay.
Pulmonary hypertension, persistent pulmonary hypertension, per se,
Okay.
pneumo.
Oh, I was gonna let people answer.
Pneumo.
What else?
Pneumonia.
Huh?
Pneumonia.
Pneumonia, okay.
I don't know.
That goes towards PPHN from a pneumonia
Well,
type.
hypoplastic hernia.
Whoa, you're going way ahead, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. What else?
CDH, like, yeah.
Yeah.
How about just the basic hypercarbia and hypoxia?
Ventilation and,
Like air leaks and stuff.
yeah, ALIX is PIE and pneumonia, yes. So ventilation and oxygenation issues on a conventional vent with high support. Okay? One more I want to, one more which didn't fall into any of these categories. What do we think of when we have pulmonary hemorrhage? So when we are having pulmonary hemorrhage, it's a better way to kind of tampen out your lungs. So for indications, PIE, pneumothoraces, pneumomediastinums, these are all considered air leak syndromes. PIE is a chronic air leak syndrome, whereas or acute air leaks are pneumothorax or pneumomediastinums. Pulmonary hypertension, pretty much what you're talking about is your oxygenation. CDH, we hope we don't see, but even if we see, we will just stabilize and ship. But in places where we take care of CDH, yes, CDH can be, because what we are doing here is called gentilation, gentle ventilation for the remaining lung. The biggest thing where our kids fall into is the ventilation and oxygenation issues in the setting of high support, and also in small babies to preserve lungs from ventilator trauma. And then the other big thing that we switch even on low vent settings, but if we have pulmonary hemorrhage, this prevents good tampen up. So these are the indications then we are thinking of oscillation. Okay, so then let me go to why we do oscillation over conventional ventilation. Just throw out your answers. Why?
Lower tidal volumes with higher rates.
So what does lower tidal volumes, what does they do?
Prevent barotrauma.
It's the lower tidal volume to decrease barotrauma. Yes. Okay. So why, and also like the basic physiology behind also I'll include here. So lower tidal volume. So the key factor, I want you guys to know two things about oscillation. The key basic physiological differences between oscillation and the conventional ventilation is the tidal volumes in oscillation are less. They are way less than your physiological dead space. Which means one tidal volume is not getting from the ventilator to the alveolus already. You need a zillion of these to move air from your vent to your air sac. And this is the very reason why once we put a baby on oscillation, you need some time to get to the steady state. Because the tidal volumes to traverse the physiological space itself takes a while. That's one difference. The other big difference between oscillation and conventional ventilation, and that is both inspiration and expiration are active phenomena in any high frequency, be it oscillation, jet, ventilation. So inspiration and expiration are active phenomena. It's not like passive recoil that we see in conventional ventilation. And this is why it makes ventilation way more efficient. So in conventional, we just dial up. If you look, we are just dialing our inspiratory numbers, and the expiration is whatever is left in the cycle. Whereas in any type of oscillation, expiration also is kind of a pushed phenomenon. and we'll talk how that is achieved. So these are the physiological differences. And what does this do? Ultimately, this is what is preventing damage not just to your air sacs but also to your airways, because that significant distension when we are using high pressures on conventional, they're not only causing barotrauma to the alveoli, they're actually dilating our airways, and that can later on lead to malacia just by being on the ventilator. Leave alone, added on top, premature airways with low musculature, low cartilage. And these are the benefits why we go to that. Anything else as a benefit for oscillation? So in a chronic baby, we hope we don't see that. High frequency ventilation, I'm not saying oscillation specific, high frequency ventilation, any mode we use can actually reverse PIE. This is done because of our very low tidal volumes, which are much more gentler. It gives the air sacs to re-stabilize from the hyperinflated areas to the low inflated areas. We get to a steady state. So it is actually a treatment mode for chronic PIE. So these are the main reasons why we go there, okay? And then how we do it. So before we know how we do it, let's look at the broad curves as to what we look and how conventional and oscillation differs. So let's take SIMV, right? This is our time curve. This is our pressure curve, say for instance. So in SIMV, typical, whether it's volume or pressure, what we are doing is we are breathing for the baby at certain rate. And if the baby has some side breaths here and there, right? So this is pretty much what we are doing. My graphs are not to scale, so don't know. So the lowest pressure during any respiratory cycle is what we are dialing as our PEEP. This is what is keeping our baseline, right? The highest pressure, what we are dialing is our PIP. This is our respiratory rate, right? And what is MAP is the mean airway pressure generated by dialing these three. And luckily, all our ventilators give us that number. There's a fancy formula to do this also, but our machines do that for us. So we do want to keep an eye for mean airway pressure, which is nothing but the rough average of this pressure, which is under the curve, whichever cycle of respiration we are in. So mean airway pressure is generated by dialing our respiratory rate, PEEP and PIP. The only other thing that we do dial in is our I time, which is from the start of a breath to the peak breath. This is our I time. So these are the factors we are dialing: respiratory rate, I time, PEEP or PIP. And PIP in volume ventilation is our tidal volume. So either PIP or tidal volume we are dialing. This is the general dynamics for conventional ventilation. So what are we doing that's different in oscillation? Because we still need mean airway pressure, we still need gas exchange, we still need the distending pressure. But what is different from this to oscillation? To graphically put it, this is what we are doing. So what we are dialing in is a hertz, right? So hertz, what is hertz? 1 hertz is what?
60.
60. So 1 hertz is 60, the frequency, it's a unit of frequency, and 1 hertz is equal to 60, whatever we are doing. It is wavelengths or breaths or whatever. So 60 breaths, okay? This is what we are dialing. This is the number of tiny breaths that is going in 1 minute is our hertz, right? This area is our mean airway pressure, and this is what we are dialing. Okay, and then what is amp? So this tiny vibration that we are doing, this is amp. Okay, with each tiny wave of hertz, how much movement of air is happening, that is your amp. This amp we are dialing in, it's not similar, this 33 or 20 we are doing is not similar to our PIP. It's a different scale totally. But in technicality, what we are dialing in is how big of fluctuations each tiny breath is giving. That is our amp. And these are the three numbers we are dialing for oscillation. So what is to give you a pictorial view in conventional ventilator, we have, say for instance, an air sac, okay? It's situated at your PEEP pressure at base of respiration. You inflate it to your PIP, you're bringing it back. That's how gas exchange is happening. So the gas exchange with each breath is significant. That's why your tidal volumes are much bigger than what you get there. So this is what your lung tissue is doing. Stretching, coming back to PEEP value, but stretching and coming back. That's your conventional. In an oscillation, your air sac is distended at a particular level, which is much more than your baseline. And then how is gas exchange happening? At this distended air sac, the air or whatever is flowing in a laminar way, and these tiny vibratory movements are coming in and out, and that's what is creating your gas exchange. If you look at your tissues, they're remaining pretty steady. How gas exchange happens is the flow of these tiny vibrations that gets in and out. And when we're starting a baby on oscillation, that's why it takes that equilibrium time. And that's when most babies, if they don't have any reserve, they kind of tank, because gas exchange is kind of almost came to a halt compared to this. We were doing this, and all of a sudden you're here, but for the airflow to kind of establish, it takes quite a while. And so that's why the first few hours of moving on to oscillation is very critical. And we have to watch, and you have to accept more FiO2, bad CO2s, till we get to that steady state. So remember this, you're doing this in conventional, stretching tissues back and forth. In oscillation, you're keeping the tissues distended, but the vibrations are what's causing the gas exchange. Basic differences between these two. And now let's talk about what increases what. So to lower your CO2, what you would do in conventional ventilator? What are the modes that we use to lower CO2?
The rate,
Increase your rate, and that's increasing your minute volume.
tidal volume,
We can increase tidal volume or your PIP if you're in a pressure mode.
manipulation.
So these two is what's affecting your minute ventilation. So basically these are our two big modes of decreasing CO2. And if you're getting more critical, you have to also think of, in chronic babies, by changing your delta P. Delta P is PIP minus your PEEP, right? That is what is causing your gas exchange.
Attention, we're gonna have a code, which is a test only. There's gonna be a test.
So
Code.
increasing your delta P
Test
by
only.
either going up on our PIP, or sometimes you go down on your P to increase and decrease the deflation. That's more for chronic babies that I think of it as delta P. So these are your usual modes for decreasing CO2 in a convention.
The delta P or amp.
So delta P relates to amp, yes. But the amp, the number delta P here is, technically the number is different, because the magnitude is different in oscillation versus this. So in a oscillatory ventilation, what do we do to lower CO2?
Increase amp.
Amplitude is the first one we have to change, okay?
Hertz. Or decrease hertz.
Decrease hertz, like why is decreasing hertz lowering our CO2? What we are doing is we are allowing more expiration. Because anytime we are going up on rate, what is suffering? Expiration.
Pink, 4th floor,